I'd like to talk about a new toolpath introduced in Mastercam 2019 called Model Chamfer. And here it is in the list. This toolpath is designed to make it easier to put chamfers on solid models. When you have conditions where you're concerned with gouging, like for example, if I want to chamfer this front edge as far as I can without violating any of this model, that's a very difficult thing to do with the standard chamfer functionality in the 2D contour. And the same thing if I wanted to put a chamfer on this edge as much as I can safely. I'm worried about my tool hitting this feature here and hitting this feature here. So we have this new toolpath that will work on a single solid, and it will work with solid chaining. If we look at the toolpath type page, we can input a chain. We will also include the solid the chain came from automatically, and you can introduce some side clearance of the the flute of the tool, and you can even select additional solids to stay a certain clearance distance away from. So I'm going to come in and do a linked edge chain. I'm going to pick this edge here, and I'm just going to pop that around like so, and I'm happy with that. And then I'll apply it, and I'll put one here as well. Okay. I'm going to ask for a clearance value. Let's say 0.05. I'm not using any avoidance model. As far as tools go, this toolpath only supports the chamfer tool type. So I have a 1/2 inch chamfer. It doesn't matter if it's a 45 degree or 60 degree, whatever it is, it's fully supported. In this first technical preview, you do not have the ability to check your shank and holder, but in a future technical preview, you will have full holder and shank collision enabled. The cut parameter page is very reminiscent of the 2D contour cut parameter page. Here's my stock to leave. And my requested chamfer width, I'm going to put a 50 on that sharp corner, and I like the top of my tool to have like a 30 thou offset below it. We support depth cuts. We support new lead in, lead out technology. This is fully gouge checked. I request an arc in and an arc out. And if that arc in or arc out is going to gouge, I can request a fitting distance trim. So this, in this case, 1/4 inch, is the distance that it is allowed to trim the chamfer motion in an effort to fit the arc on safely. And if this simply is not enough to arc on safely, Mastercam will simply plunge and cut the chamfer. So this value allows it to shorten the chamfer toolpath until that arc can safely happen. And I'm telling it, you can't shorten it any more than 1/4 inch. And of course, we support multi-passes if you wish. And a very simple linking page. Just give it a retract, give it a feed plane. It's all completely gouge checked. Nothing to worry about with your rapids. I create the toolpath. There's my result. And if I backplot and I bring that tool down, you can see there's some clearance here, that 50 thou clearance, and then it starts to go ahead and arc in, cut my chamfer, and again safe, and it arcs out. There's that 1 inch clearance. It's going to come down here again, safely move in, cut this chamfer all the way around. My tip is clear here because of my offset on the top. But if I was concerned about that, I could easily pick my part of my vise here as an avoidance. And it goes around and around, and then it will exit. So that really simplifies putting a chamfer on a model when you're dealing with a true solid and you're in a complex situation. Now, what would happen if I was to come in here and 3 chain all? What if I was going to do this one? I'm going to reverse it. I'm just going to move it around. And there we go. Cut direction is very important. We are looking at the chain from a left compensation standpoint for climb cut. So that chain direction is correct. And I just regenerate. And you'll see that I must be safe. I must not be hitting this. Fast forward, I'll put it here, and you can see that I am very far away from there. So let's try to cause a potential problem there. I'm going to make this tool quite large. That should cause some type of an issue, right? And we'll create that as a new assembly. I'm not worried about changing the name right now, and we'll request a good sized chamfer as well. And I get nothing, probably because the bottom of the tool is violating this floor. So let's go with some bottom offset, 20 Gren on the bottom there. And that's all that it can chamfer safely. So you can see it'll come down that big chamfer tool. There's my clearance being respected. You'll also see my arc on and my arc off did not happen here because it needed to trim back more than 1/4 of an inch for that to happen. So it plunges in and gives me what it can do. And you see it comes over here. Again, clearing this post. And there's a huge chamfer I'm asking for. And that's all it can do safely. So that's a bit of an extreme example, but just to show the capabilities. And here's another scenario here. Oh, nope, I have it in the same file. So here's another scenario. So this model has sharps, but what if the model already has chamfers on it? And we'll find it. There it is. So we'll turn all this off. I don't think it's there. Oh, there it is, right there. That's my fault. So here we go. So now I have chamfers and I colored them green already. Nothing changes. Nothing changes here. So I'm going to go into this toolpath and I'm going to pick a chain. In this case, I picked the top rail because I want my top of tool offset to be controlled from here. You know, I could pick the bottom rail when I'm more concerned in controlling the bottom offset. So I picked the top rails, and the only difference is you're going to put a 0 chamfer width here. So you put a 0 there, and it calculates, and it produces a gouge-free chamfer result once again. There it is. Entering on, and you can see how accurate the compensation is, like so. So models with chamfers and models with sharp corners. Here's another example where we put some avoidance material into the mix. Something like this. Now I'm not saying that I would really try to chamfer this with these clamps and on this fixture, but we're just trying to illustrate the gouge-free awareness. So model chamfer, I'd like to pick this closed loop on top here. So there's my chain direction, so cutter comp left is in the right location. Chamfer tool, it only supports chamfer tools in this first release. So I'm going to grab my 1/2 inch chamfer, or my 1/4 inch, doesn't really matter. And this is a 0 width, and I'm going to control some top offset just below the top of the tool. I'd like it to mill. Lead in, lead out, yes. Maybe we'll change this to 50% instead. Fitting distance, I'll give it a little more room to work if it needs it, and then very simple clearance, very simple feed plane. And you'll see if I process this that it's just going to violate right through my model, and there's the motion going right through that clamp. I don't want that, right? So we have the ability to define an avoidance, some more data, and I'm just going to select by color. all those solid bodies there. I'm going to tell Mastercam, look, stay a good 200 away from those. Don't come any closer than 200. And you'll see my result. And there it is, staying 200 away, like so. And that's accurate. So all the avoidance you want, the model is automatically, as soon as I chained the model, we consumed it in the solid model section. If you want to see what it's looking at, you can see it's looking at all that automatically. And that's for side clearance. So any standing bosses, any part of this solid we're concerned about. If there are additional surfaces, solids, or meshes that we are concerned about, we are free to select them here. We can also select faces of this solid as well. And that would be an example like this, where I've got a really nasty little situation going on here. All right, so I chained this flat chain. Mastercam will throw an error if the chain is not flat. It must be flat. And I was just concerned about what's going to happen here when this starts to chamfer. So what I did was I selected these 4 faces as additional avoidance areas and gave Mastercam a distance to make sure I don't come near those with the cutting portion of the tool, right? Because this is side clearance. I was worried about the cutting portion here. And I wound up getting a good result. Bring it in again, I dirtied it. And here it is here. This one here. And you'll see the tool come down. And now I am in fact clearing everything as it works its way in, comes around, and then arcs off, and I'm still clearing everything, and I feel comfortable. And this is a pretty nasty little situation to try and do some automatic chamfer. And this is basically a toolpath. We're saying I want to gouge the model and I don't want to gouge the model. So you have enough protection between your avoidance and auto protecting against the model here to create some safe results. So I hope this toolpath helps in your future programming needs.